Hello and welcome to TheAIbumMan. Today we're going to be taking a look at Paradise Lost's new album, Obsidian. Paradise Lost have never really been a band to make two albums quite the same. They started out as a death doom act in the early 90s, but have since moved into gothic metal and even went through a kind of Depeche Mode-like synth-pop phase. But more recently, since 2015's The Plague Within, they've moved back to their death doom heavier roots, especially with their last album, Medusa, which was easily the heaviest record they put out since early 90s classics such as Shades of God or Icon. And while their previous albums, in an attempt to go back to their heavier roots, had started with something heavy and in your face, Obsidian begins with a far gentler note with its opener Dark Thoughts, beginning with an acoustic guitar and an orchestrated accompaniment, before then it just kicks into next gear with harsh, dark, growling vocals that kick in as the orchestra begins to swell and the meaty guitar riffs of Greg McIntosh blare out. It's a terrifically satisfying way to start out the album, oscillating seamlessly between Nick Holmes's clean and growling vocals with ease, cohesion and power. It's such a dynamically immersive song to start the album off, and it just delivers all that you could really want from Paradise Lost on the outset. It's got the death doom infused with gothic metal and even an acoustic opening. And the next track continues the brilliance of the first. It can almost lull you into thinking this is a guaranteed album of the year. Fall from Grace is almost like a sequel to No Hope in Sight, the single from 2015's The Plague Within. It opens with Greg's signature tone, belting out the most harmonically melodic lead lines on guitar that you could possibly think of, before diving deep into slow, methodical death doom in the verse. Then ratcheting up the tension with a clean chorus straight out of the gothic metal of Draconian times. It's infectious in the chorus and so powerfully heavy in the verse. It's just an utterly brilliant tune. And unfortunately, after this fantastic 1-2 punch to start off the album, things do begin to fall away a little bit, but there's still a lot of great music to come. With track 3, Ghosts, we're introduced to the slightly new direction that Paradise Lost decided to go in this album, one inspired by the goth rock of the 80s, bands like Sisters of Mercy, The Cult, or The Mission. But from the pre-release information about this album, I was expecting this to have actually a lot bigger influence on the album. A lot has been made of the gothic rock presence on this record. I thought it was going to be drenched in 80s goth sounds and tones, which admittedly I was a little bit unsure about because, full disclosure, 80s goth rock has never much been my kind of thing. I like the odd bit of The Cult, but really Sisters of Mercy don't particularly do much for me. But the goth rock elements are really only apparent in two songs, Ghosts and Hope Dies Young. Ghost was the first single from the album, with its drum sequencer-like beat very much taking from Sisters of Mercy in that regard, and distorted bass line. It almost has a danceable groove to it. In terms of contemporary comparisons, it kind of reminds me of Grave Pleasures, who are a brilliant modern band who are certainly inspired by the goth rock of old. But while Ghost is certainly a catchy tune, and I can understand why they put it forward as the lead single, the corny refrain at times of "For Jesus Christ," I find just detracts a bit from the gloomy immersion of the record. It just pulls me that little bit out. And the song doesn't quite have the range or substance of the previous two tracks, which just balance the heavy and the soft so well. It feels a little bit more middle of the road. But despite that, with such an intense rhythmic groove, there certainly is fun to be had with it, and it's not an unenjoyable song.
The undead lust withstands. For the fire burns deep within this trust.
Whereas Hope Dies Young of the goth rock songs on the album is probably the weakest song on the album, full stop. And maybe that is just because of my lack of love for old school goth rock, but this song towards the tail end of the album with exclusively clean vocals and rather unremarkable melodies, I mean, at least Ghosts had a strong hook to it. Hope Dies Young just seems to fall flat. It's not something that's all that memorable. It's a song I struggle to recall, even after having heard the album many times. I do think that with these songs, it's more the execution of the goth rock rather than the ideas in principle, which is a little bit lacking, but it's certainly not enough to detract from what is overall a fantastic listen of an album. A great example of this album's strengths is that coming off the back of Medusa, which had a very clear emphasis on the heavy, growling vocals and the old death doom sound of Paradise Lost, it's so lovely to see such a seamless interplay between Nick's rich baritone cleans and his terrifying growls, like on The Devil Embraced or Serenity. Though a big part in what makes this album just so irresistible is the tremendous production, which focuses on a large dynamic range and really enables the songs to subtly build and fall without needing to deliberately crescendo or force in some big part to them. Instead, the riffs just sound so chunky and glorious when they need to, and Nick's growls so terrifying and in your face, as well as also being able to focus on the clear melody in Greg's guitar playing, and also the melody of Nick's clean vocals too. In many ways, this is an album which feels like it spans their career of the last decade or so at least, maybe even more, and their influences as well, hoovering up many of the different features which have made past records so great and so memorable, whether it's borrowing the crushing nature of Medusa on closer Ravenghast with its slow brooding riffs, or the catchiness of Faith Divides Us, which is captured on Ending Days with its immediate hook. Paradise Lost certainly deliver another captivating, gloomy listen, which, while more sonically diverse than previous efforts, I also feel this contributes to a slight lack of cohesion, especially with the sporadic influence of goth rock. While some found Medusa's singular focus on a slow atmosphere and pure heaviness to be a little unrelenting, I enjoyed how each of the songs seemed to fit together like different parts of a puzzle, whereas here there's a lot more influences going on, a lot more different ideas, and as a result a song like Ravenghast coming at the end of the album can feel a little out of place with how similar it does sound to Medusa, and how similar it does sound to classic Death Doom on an album with more upbeat songs like Ghosts. But still, these are minor gripes in what is an irresistible record with a lovely blend of Death Doom brutality and gothic catchiness. Paradise Lost continue their great run of records, and this is certainly an 8 out of 10. Hope you enjoyed this review. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe, click the bell thing, check out more of my videos. They'll be on the end screen in a few seconds. And until next time, long live rock and roll.